Welcome to the Healthy Perspective Podcast with your host, chiropractor, entrepreneur, mentor, and author, Dr. Chris Bowman. He'll break down and extract the secret sauce behind his own success and the success of some of the top leaders in every category and from around the world. Get ready for your weekly mental adjustment because shift is going to happen.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Healthy Perspective Podcast. Today has the potential to be life-changing because we have Miss Angela Irwin on with us. She is an international life and confidence coach, TEDx speaker, and the founder of Joyful Life Solutions, which specializes in helping women reprogram their self-esteem and self-acceptance to build lasting confidence. During the pandemic, Angela launched the Joyful Life cochlear implant fund to help ensure fellow cochlear implant recipients have access to the ongoing critical technology that they need to keep their hearing. In addition to her coaching and training, Angela holds a bachelor's degree in sociology and psychology, as well as an MBA. Born in a small farm community in South Dakota, Angela has lived and traveled all over the world. She and her husband, Colin, have been living in France for the past 11 years. Talk about an introduction. Angela, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Oh my gosh, it's such a great thing to be here. Thank you for having me.
Of course. And just a little nod towards technology, right? Not only are we able to do this because you can hear me, but we're able to do this. You're on the opposite side of the world. I'm in Southern California. You're in France. I mean, just crazy that we're able to even have this conversation. I bet if we met, 10 years ago and be like, hey, so 10 years later, you're going to have a conversation over this thing called the internet on your computer. Oh, you're going to go deaf, but somehow you're still going to be able to hear. We would be like, what? No way. So it's pretty sweet to, I think, just like, not taking for granted the opportunity that we have to connect and really looking at like the purpose, so we have this opportunity to connect. Now we have the opportunity to spread messages far and wide. I'm going to be heard in France, potentially you're going to be heard in Southern California. And it's such an amazing honor to be able to be in this age, in this culture, in this, post, I don't know, mid, where we're at, wherever we're at in COVID, where technology has advanced to the point where we can have this conversation.
I agree with you 1,000%. Yeah, we would have been like, what do you mean? And to be able to see each other almost Judson style, right. Like when we were kids or when I was a kid, thinking we have this video conferencing where seeing each other. And yes, absolutely. I do not take it for granted any day because as a cochlear implant recipient, we have an external component that when that is off our head, like when we go to sleep during the night or when we wake up in the morning, most of us don't sleep with it. It is nice, especially on airplanes. I always feel so bad when I'm traveling with my husband and there'll be like, a crying baby and I'll just look over and like turn off my external device. I go, I'm sorry. But yeah, so we don't take that for granted. Every time I have to change a battery, what the alternative reality would be, which is I am absolutely 100% clinically deaf. Yeah. So yeah, technology is life-changing.
This just popped into my head right now, not really related to our conversation that we're going to have much at all. But there's a show on, I think it's Net Geo. It's Will Smith's show, like Welcome to Earth. And the first couple of episodes, I haven't watched all of them, but there's a guy, I'm pretty sure his name is Rick. And he's introducing him to, he's a mountaineer and explorer. Will is obviously a Hollywood actor, doesn't have much experience in the outdoors. And they're going to check out a volcano. And they're hiking up this mountain and whatnot. And it's only about halfway through the episode that they reveal that this guy's blind. So he's asking Will to describe, like, what does the volcano actually look like, And so Will's like, oh, yeah, I completely, forgot. Because I don't think he started blind. I think he became blind. But the whole show is focused on if you take a sense away, it's not like your life is destroyed. It's other things become heightened. And now you get to experience life differently. And so he was talking about like in this volcano, like there's the normal like spouting sounds and all of that stuff. But there's this like deep, like almost like throbbing, I don't know, like oscillating sound that's going on. And Will is like, I don't hear that. But the Rick, I'm pretty sure that's his name. He's like, I feel my eardrum like rumbling, and they take this device that is able to hear a much wider spectrum of sound than we can normally hear, and they amplify it, and then you hear this that Rick is able to hear because he's not focused on everything that he's in tune with everything else that's around him. And so he's like tapping things so he can kind of tell how big something is based on its response. But I gotta believe that yours is a similar, even though you can hear now, I'm sure there's a period of time where it's like, I need my other senses in order to interact with the world. And you gain almost a superpower because we're so reliant, really on vision. We don't get to rely on everything else, all the other senses, the beautiful world that's around us. Why don't you kind of just maybe walk us through your story, just a little bit, maybe a little bit pre-catalyst moment and then life transformation, and then we'll kind of go from there.
Okay, that's fantastic. I'm gonna have to check out that show,
check it out.
first of all. But you're 100% right. So I was born with normal hearing. In kindergarten, when you go, thank goodness we have the school hearing test every year. In kindergarten, everything's fine. Go back in first grade, they tell my shocked parents, she's got a mild hearing loss. But it should not progress. That was the kicker. Long story short, for 15 years, I slowly lost all of my hearing. And you're absolutely right. During that time, I taught myself how to read lips. You really do become you pay really close attention. That's why, you mentioned superpower, and I was just having this conversation recently with someone, and I said, what's your superpower? And funnily enough, I think it is listening, because I had to pay so much attention that even in high school, like my girlfriends would come to me with their problems because I knew I would actually listen.
Interesting.
And it serves me really well as a life coach or a confidence coach now, because I can, really, really focus. But you have that, just really being aware of what's happening around you, which also has served me well moving to France, where the language is not English. It's the same sort of thing. It's like you're thinking about, okay, what could be happening in this situation? Because I knew like 3 words in French when we moved here in 2010. So it was sort of the same skills when I couldn't hear that I was applying to not being able to understand the language and sort of guessing what's happening and anticipating what someone might be saying. So it's been an interesting journey for sure.
Did they ever figure out why?
No. No.
Interesting.
It's a mystery. And I know to this day really, really bothers my mom. I have really subscribed to the quote, and I don't know, you may know, I don't know where it comes from originally, the original sources, but things don't happen to you, they happen for you.
Yeah, it's good.
And as I look back, over the whole sequence of events, and, when I, think about, not only losing my hearing, but what that gave me is a lot of compassion for other people. Certainly the listening skills, like I mentioned. Yeah. But also like even handling disappointments, like promotions that I didn't get or whatever. I look back on those chain of events. So had I, like, let's say I got said promotion, I wouldn't have ended up here in France. And so when you sort of look back through that from the backwards view and put that all together, at the moment I have Joyful Life Solutions, like you mentioned. So with the confidence coaching and speaking, and I have the cochlear implant fund, all of that led to this point to be doing, running these 2 businesses. And so I'm so much a subscriber of, okay, I don't know the reason, but it happened, and but it's gotten me here, which I'm so grateful for. So I'm not really hung up on why anymore, although it is, it would certainly be interesting to find out. But I think for me, the bigger thing is this is where it's got me.
That's amazing. And claiming to be a confidence coach means that most likely you went through a period of time where you were unconfident. Oh. And then becoming confident changed your life so much that you're like, I know other people are having similar experience, even if you just focused in on the niche of people that have lost their hearing. I'm sure there's millions of people around the world that can identify and that you help get through. Why don't you just maybe briefly, walk us through that period of time where you're going through that self-doubt, going through that, thoughts of like, I'm not valuable. I'm not worth anything to anyone. And maybe what helped change your perspective to see value in yourself, what experience that you've had, and then maybe some sneak peeks without giving away your whole bag of tricks, into like, if you were confidence coaching me, what are some things that some initial tips, some common things that you give, pretty much everybody struggles with, that people can make change, right now?
Yeah. Okay. Great question. And you're 1,000% correct. So, lost my hearing over the course of the 15 years, felt incredible shame and embarrassment, which now I'll look at it and I think it was nothing I could have done, but you can't help your feelings. Feelings are not rational.
Especially in high school.
Yeah, it's like, and got the cochlear implant at the age of 23, changed my life. I had a future again, and I just went guns blazing, because for that 15 years, I was absolutely terrified, thinking, what future might I have, if any, if I can't participate in the hearing world? And so got the cochlear implant. And I should just caveat that during that 15 years, I never talked about it. Like, that was my coping mechanism, was that I didn't talk about it, acknowledge it, really, somehow something was going to happen and it would magically work out. And thank goodness for the cochlear implant technology that was what happened. So then got the implant and just went full steam ahead, and didn't realize that there was underlying undealt with emotions and a little bit of trauma there. Went on to have a wonderful 15-year career in corporate, a couple of medical devices companies, lived in Australia, lived in obviously the US. That's how we moved to France. I was made redundant or laid off, as we would say, in 2015. And there was just something that, even a few years before that, I'd just been thinking there was like some inner thing of like, there's something else I should be doing. There's something else I should be doing. And so that situation sort of forced it. So I did take the jump and said, okay, I'm going to figure out, I had no idea what that was going to be, but I'm going to figure out what this is. Had a little bit of time. Long story short, found myself in a year-long coaching certification program, with a dual build an online business. And 6 months in, I was just brought to my knees in depression, although I didn't know that that's what it was. Because particularly when we're building this online business, it's all about visibility. Like, you got to get out there, you got to get out there, you got to put yourself out there. What I didn't realize is I had so much undealt with emotions from losing my hearing, because I lost my speech, or you start to lose your speech changes, let me just say. And so when I, as a kid, and when I would meet new people, they would say, why do you talk funny? Why do you talk like that? And so that was a lesson to me of just keep your mouth shut. So now you fast forward how many ever years, and in my early 40s, and she's saying, you got to be visible, you got to do these videos, you got to get yourself out there. And I just went into shutdown. So that was a long process. I did get professional help, which I would encourage anyone to do. At first I thought, oh, now that I know what it is, it being depression, oh, I can handle this. No, no. But you're exactly right. That was a catalyst to understanding. I didn't realize that we can change the way we feel about ourselves. I just thought you're either confident or you're not. I had, at my lowest point, when you talk about like self-worth, I was like at the bottom as you could go. I was like, you don't even deserve to be breathing right now. I mean, it was really bad. And I don't want anyone else to ever feel that way. So that was really the catalyst. And then as I started to be vulnerable, which up until that point I always thought was a weakness, because, you just like the British say, stiff upper lip, keep, soldier on. But when I was vulnerable, people were vulnerable back. And that's when I realized, like you said, that so many other people, they're like, oh my gosh, I've never felt like I fit in or whatever. They shared their vulnerability with me. And that's when I was like, oh my gosh, this is what I want to do 100%. Because if I can help people come out of that pit where I was and that I had to work through, that's what I want to do. And so I think, to answer your other question about what are some tips that people can do, I think really self-acceptance and sort of changing around how we view ourselves, the self-concept, self-esteem, whatever self-word you want to call it, and that self-belief, that's the foundation of building lasting confidence. So we have to kind of go back and take a little bit of look back. Coaching is more about going forward, but we have to go a little bit backwards and say, okay, what was the belief, the negative belief, what's the actual story, what's really true, work through some of that, and then we can start taking action, which is what confidence is all about. We have to start taking action, and it's like a muscle then, we start to build that confidence.
Yeah. That's good. I kind of, as I'm having this conversation, I'm also like thinking back into my own, journey to kind of where I am too. And for some reason, what just popped in my head, and this is for me, I know it's not for everybody, but spiritually for me is really what, like looking internal, like what am I worth? Who am I worth to? If I'll say, I'm sure I'm worth something to my parents, or I'm worth something to, blah, blah, blah. But it's like, what is their worth, that their worth matters to me? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I just keep on asking why, and went further and further and further until my answer kind of came, from a spiritual source, where it's like, I believe that there is a creator that created me for a purpose, and that purpose is for something bigger than myself. And if a creator, for me, my king has worth in me, I'm not just a petty little servant that's like, you know what I mean, that's just doing a bidding of some unloving grand, either happenstance or reverse chaos, where everything happens for a reason, but really for what reason, is that? It's like I now have a renewed purpose in that a being far greater than myself, someone that created me, is now loving me, and now it's like, okay, so now I have this purpose to then go, how do you help people find, because I know it's different for everybody, how do you help people find that purpose bigger than themselves? Because that's ultimately what it comes down to, right? If you're living for yourself, that's the scarcity model. That's not the abundance mindset. You're never going to be satisfied just living for yourself. There is something where you got to take care of baggage within yourself, but ultimately you have to have that turning point where it's like, I am no longer living for what I can get out of life. I'm partnering with life for other people, and we're going to do this thing together, so that way we can all reach our goals. And ultimately that's an abundance mindset, right? You get what you want. You get to live in France, but the return of your living in France is you are helping literally people change their life and their life outlook to become the next greatest, version of themselves. How can you, how do you help coach and guide people to find that deep, eternal, internal purpose?
Such a great question, and such a great setup for that. It is so true, and I think that's what most of us want. We want to have a real sense of purpose. We want to be a part of something that is bigger than ourselves, and 100% agree with that. So I think as a coach, from the coach perspective, and bringing that confidence coaching, if I can help someone improve their view of themselves, improve the belief they have in themselves, improve their confidence, they're going to go out every day and they're going to get out of their comfort zone, and it is hard. But then that has a ripple effect, right? Yeah. So they're out there achieving their biggest goals, and that has a ripple effect, which I think is just amazing. And a lot of what I do with my clients as well is we're just peeling back the onion. We're rediscovering who they are, because they've had, unfortunately, decades of having stuff told to them, having societal stuff put on us. It's almost like just this heavy layers and layers and layers. And what we do is we try to strip that back And so many of my clients will say, I just want to find my voice again, or I just want to understand who I am. And that is like the most amazing thing to be able to watch as we strip back the onion, we peel back the layers, and then the flower blossoms. And it's like, it's so incredible. I feel so grateful to have, somehow stumbled into this, and like you said, this sequence of events. And I think that's the key too, is just being open. Like when I got laid off, I was absolutely devastated. And then I'm like, all right, this is an opportunity. And so that, brings me to now. And we talk about having that bigger purpose. So that's what I thought. I thought, okay, the confidence coaching and the speaking, which I absolutely love. And then the pandemic hit. And, cochlear implant technology is not something that's well known to most people. There's a surgical component that should be once in a lifetime, but there's an ongoing external component that needs to be much like a smartphone, repaired, replaced, updated, upgraded, that sort of thing. And a lot of times insurance does not cover that, or there could be $7,000 of a copay. And I knew, because I have a lot of friends who are cochlear implant recipients or living in the US, that I knew this was going to be a huge issue of them being able to keep their equipment functioning, which means keep them as part of the hearing world, because without it, like I said at the very beginning, we are back to being deaf 100% of the time. And so now that's what we're doing. We're providing resources for people who have no other option to keep their cochlear implant hearing. And, I'm also doing confidence coaching with them as well. And I could have never, just like you said at the beginning, like if 10 years ago, if even 2 years ago you had said, you're going to start a nonprofit, I would have been, oh, that's funny. Oh, that's, how cute is that?
Right.
But it just, I don't know, again, that same sort of calling or something that's like, I knew I had to try.
Yeah. It's good. Now, where do you see this going? Like every entrepreneur, I think I don't know about the definition, but what makes us crazy, like the Steve Jobs, like the people that change the world are the crazy, or are crazy enough the ones to believe, the crazy one, whatever that quote, that quote. But it's like, what is that big, vision? And it doesn't have to be like 40 years in advance or, like something like that. But what are things that you see happening as a result of either the network that you built from the people that you've coached, or the awareness that you're bringing to cochlear implants, or the funding that you're able to get from the cochlear implant fund? What do you kind of see happening in the future?
Great question. So definitely want to, like the immediate stuff is just people. So we had, just before Christmas, a 20-year-old in Dallas, Texas, who was at risk of losing her job because her external equipment wasn't working. I mean, this is like real life stuff, and they had no other options. So we were able to get her some new equipment. She's kept her job. So it really does have such a, just the day-to-day life impact. But from a larger perspective, like you're saying, the cochlear implant technology is 40 years old. And most people are like, what's a cochlear implant? I have no idea. And so that's a big part of what we want to do too, just raise that awareness around the cochlear implant technology, take away the stigma. I mean, there's still such a stigma. If you're under 90 years old, God forbid you have hearing loss or want to, acknowledge that. But it is so important, especially because in the last decade or so, there's been significant research, and the most prevalent is out of Johns Hopkins, is that there's a direct link between untreated hearing loss and early onset dementia.
Wow.
So people typically, and it's 8 years, they've been able to say it's like an 8-year gap. And the data around the time that people start to experience hearing loss and when they actually get treatment is more than 10 years. And so it is really important that people pay attention to their hearing health, just like they would any other, teeth and our vision and, our heart and all of that stuff. It really, really is important. And it shouldn't be put off. And so to answer your question, if we can bring some further awareness to cochlear implants in general, but hearing health and awareness, and, you know, be sure that cochlear implant recipients aren't losing their hearing a second time,
Gosh.
which is just devastating and cruel. And in my opinion, is like, again, like we set our lives up around being able to be part of the hearing community, and to have that ripped away because they can't afford the you know, the technology, the external sound processor technology, is just terrible.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. You know, it's interesting, you know, in the United States, at least, I don't know. I know France is always writing and protesting about something, but in the United States, there's obviously been much more awareness to, like, hey, people are having, you know, people of color are having a hard time getting a job or getting a promotion or getting a loan. But then there's all these, you know, different, I don't know, personas that people have of you know, I don't want to say uh just less typical, I suppose. Not better, not worse, not, you know, anything. um I think they're also, I was talking with I did a podcast with the gal. I think you would love the conversation, and when you listen to it, you can connect with her. She's an adult with autism, and she didn't get diagnosed until she was 36, and so she has her kind of like pre-diagnosis life of wondering, why can't I fit in with everybody? Why do I have to have this and that to kind of accomplish or do the same things as other people? Or why can I not get over my fear of people, or, you know, whatever? And then having a diagnosis, now it's like, oh, it's because my neurology works different. It's not better, worse. It's not, it's just, these are the things that I need to live my best life. And now she's the same. She has a couple different companies. She runs her companies from her home. She doesn't have to go out into the world, and you know what I mean? But I think overall, what could be the goal is, you know, I think a nonprofit like yours, a business like hers, you know, all these people where it's like, there's not just skin differences or sexual orientation differences, but there's disability differences as well. And I think the most common disability that people are catered to by law is, you know, the wheelchair access, like, you know what I mean? But there's so many other disabilities that aren't really being looked at. And I think you, like, this gal that I interviewed a week or so ago, I think you guys come from it from the right heart, where I think a lot of people with disabilities say, you didn't do this for me, so no, I deserve this and this and this and this and this and this and this. And that's really putting yourself right back into the scarcity model, not changing anything, but really making, and it's, you know, if I was an employer and you came to me, it's like, you don't have anything for deaf people, you need to change everything that you're doing for me. And it's like, well, actually, you're my employee, like, you're here to better my business, versus if I had an employee that, you know, that was having a trouble, you know, because of her or his disability, and they're like, hey, I want to help you, I'm in this for you, but in order to do the best job, these are things that would really help me, and making me more aware of things that I overlooked before. It's not that I have a prejudice, it's just that I have a way that I work. I hear and see perfectly fine, so I'm not looking at life through the lens that you look through, or hearing through the you know, the membrane that you hear through. So making me aware and helping me make my business better, to be open towards people that might not be able to hear, or to be open towards people that view life this way. I think that would bring unity between a typical life experience with our normal five senses, and you know, what is it called, a non-typical, or, you know, whatever life experience, that when one of your senses is taken away or distorted or interfered with, or, you know, whatever. Can you kind of, as a wrap up, kind of speak to maybe like that type of perspective or conversations that you've had with people that might be angry at the world because they don't have the same opportunities as, you know, maybe people with their typical five senses? And how do you kind of help these people work through that perspective, just from a state of scarcity to one of abundance?
yeah, that really is. I mean, there's, you know, such a divide in the mindset of how people approach things. It's usually, you know, either that fear of scarcity, or, okay, let's look from a gratitude and an abundance perspective. I've somehow always been an eternal optimist, and I guess
Awesome.
Having that cochlear implant technology magically appear at the very, very darkest day just reinforces that in me. And so I always want to be more positive. And again, kind of going back to that, things happen for you, not to you. And I think, like you said, it can be such a different approach to, okay, so, I might, like you said, to use your word of, not typical situation, but what can I bring? Because a lot of times we have a lot of skill sets and wonderful things that, just like we talked about earlier, like the vision gets enhanced or the awareness gets enhanced. We have a lot of wonderful skill sets that we can bring. And to try to focus on the positive rather than being angry. And I will admit, I mean, yes, it's important to feel all your feelings for a little bit of time. Right. That's, as they say, you don't want to build a house there. You want to be able to sort of move through that. One of the things that I go back to, and I go back to this when I start to think about, oh my gosh, what are you doing? Who do you think you are? That imposter syndrome creeps up. Who do you think you are to be doing stuff? I go back to, I would like to be the person that I needed in that time.
It's good.
And I think, everybody can relate to that. And it is hard. I mean, like, I have like the most fabulous board of directors. And only one of them has a cochlear implant. The rest, they have normal hearing, and they're always really curious and blown away about just the normal daily activities that they don't think about. Because, I mean, let's be honest, unless it happens to us, regardless what it is, we don't really stop to think, because life is busy and chaotic and crazy as it is. We don't really stop to think about, okay, well, how would this impact someone or another? And so that, I guess I would say that as well, as like, everybody is going through something, especially in these crazy COVID times, just to give people the benefit of the doubt, not to take things personally, and maybe sort of pivot that perspective of, okay, so what can I bring to this conversation, or what teaching can I bring to help people understand a little bit better, right? Because then that's a win-win situation, right. I think.
Right. Yeah. That's good. I'm excited that you're running this race with me, just empowering people, equipping people. And I think this is, I talked to somebody earlier today. It's like, this is probably at the cusp of humanity's finest moment. Because I think we're probably at the lowest that we've been in a long time. But there's people like us that are like, we're going to see past the division, the hate, the disrespect, the lies, all that stuff, and choose to see what we can create rather than what's being created for us. And it's interesting having this conversation with you about like hearing and having a hearing change, and I could be talking about having vision for your life with somebody that's blind, and it's gonna mean the same thing, where it's like we all need to look and hear and sense and visualize it and create that future self, that future world, that future community that we all want to be a part of, instead of being so focused on lack, what we don't have, and what's going on. And so I'm thankful for you. I'm excited for all the people that you coach and all the people that get to hear you speak. I think we can reconnect in a year or 2 or 3, and there's going to be a massive ripple effect from this conversation and all the conversations that you're having. So thank you so much for joining me. It's been an amazing conversation. If people want to know more about you, more about your coaching, want to know what the best restaurant is in France, how do they get a hold of you?
Awesome. So between the two, the coaching business and the nonprofit, I have like lots of different social media handles and things like that. But so I drilled down to the simplest ones. Okay. And on Instagram, my handle is at Angela M, as in Marie, Irwin, IRWIN. Okay. And if you want to email me directly, the easiest one is angela@jlcif.org. But then from then you can find me on different social media platforms. But I think that was so beautifully said. There is so much. It does feel like such dark times right now, and so much screaming and yelling. And it's such a pleasure to connect with like-minded people. And, it's, not that it's easy every day, but to just think, okay, what can I do to make a little bit of a difference, each day? And I think that's something that I have held on to this past almost 2 years about, okay, I can, if I just do a little bit of a thing, if I do one little thing each day, how can I, help counter that? So such an honor to be here with you. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Of course. Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to the Healthy Perspective Podcast. To connect with Dr. Bowman, follow him on Instagram at Dr. Chris Bowman. Until next time, make shift happen.